Considering the nearly 3 million vote lead that the loser in this year's presidential election still holds and won't become president, you can't be that surprised that there are people talking once again about whether we should possibly get rid of the Electoral College. And the New York Times recently ran an editorial that called for that. Can't be too surprised about it. And Bill O'Reilly, by the way, of Fox News, isn't surprised about it, but he does have a very interesting alternative hidden motivation that he attributes to those who are choosing now to target the Electoral College for destruction. And you'll see it in this video.
After Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, the left in America is demanding that the Electoral College system put into place in 1787 be scrapped. But there's a hidden reason for this. Talking Points believes this is all about race. The left sees white privilege in America as an oppressive force that must be done away with. Therefore, white working class voters must be marginalized. And what better way to do that than center the voting power in the cities? Very few commentators will tell you that the heart of liberalism in America today is based on race. It permeates almost every issue. That white men have set up a system of oppression. That system must be destroyed. Bernie Sanders peddled that. To some extent, Hillary Clinton did. And the liberal media tries to sell that all day long. So-called white privilege, bad. Diversity, good. If you look at the voting patterns, it's clear that the Democrats are heavily reliant on the minority vote, also on the woman vote. White men have largely abandoned the Democrats, and the left believes this is because of racism, that they want to punish minorities, keep them down. So that's what's really going on when you hear about the Electoral College and how unfair it allegedly is. Summing up, left wants power taken away from the white establishment. They want a profound change in the way America is run. Taking voting power away from the white precincts is the quickest way to do that.
So the white establishment, so he's making it very obvious there what he's talking about. I love that he says, okay, they rely heavily on the minority vote and the woman vote. There are literally more women than men in this country. Oh, look at them. They found a trick. They rely on the majority.
So let's break that down. First of all, thank you, Bill. We appreciate you finally admitting what you actually stand for.
Yeah.
And that is the white establishment. He didn't say the establishment because that seems wrong. But here, he's literally defending the white establishment. It's amazing. So where he's right and wrong. He says the left sees white privilege in America as an oppressive force that must be done away with.
This has nothing to do with white privilege, honestly.
No, but wait, this doesn't. So I'll get to that in a second. But if you say whites have privilege that others don't, yeah, I'm for equality. I'm an American. Yeah,
so white people bad, diversity good.
No. Yeah, and so that's the second part. No, not white people bad, but diversity good? Yes, totally.
Yeah.
It's great.
That's the part I'm saying yeah to, by the way. That he apparently is saying no to.
That's right. That's amazing. Like, but to them, and O'Reilly does this all the time. I don't know if it's wittingly or unwittingly. He'll go, they're for humanist secularism. Okay, secularism, I get it. Some of you are religious nuts and you agree with the Taliban that religion should control the state. But humanists, why? Are there non-humanists? Who are you for if you're not for the humans? So in this case, he's like, oh, I guess you're for diversity and you want everyone to have the same rights and privileges. Yeah, I do. Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
So now when it comes to the Electoral College, John is right. It's so funny how they view everything through the prism of race. They say it about us, but in reality, it's them. The Electoral College, I want to get rid of it because it makes no sense. We are supposed to live in a democracy, and 2 out of the last 5 elections, the person who won the popular vote, who should win in a democracy, didn't get to be president. If you care about democracy, you'd be really angry about that, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, but they don't care about democracy. Yeah. They're like, oh, the Republican won, even though they got less votes? Yes!
Yeah.
Right? And what they want to do is now, they want to preserve the Electoral College because they think it is, just by the way, total random fate, twist of fate, that it happens to help Republicans. It could have just as easily helped Democrats, but as it turns out, and in their view, helping Republicans is helping white people.
Of course.
Right? So they're like, oh,
they're
God.
right about that.
Yeah, a little bit. So they're like, no, actually, it hurts white people completely throughout the country.
But they
they think that it helps them. So Anyway, so they happen to have more white voters that are voting for Republicans in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan for this election, for this cycle. It's true in Ohio more significantly. And so they think like, well, let's keep the Electoral College. Let's keep it because it gives us an unfair advantage. We can lose elections by 3 million votes and still become president. Yes, the white establishment wins.
An advantage they've had in the House for a long time. They just continually get fewer votes, but always have a majority. It's amazing how that works out.
Yeah, look, whereas the rest of us go, let's just, the person with the more votes, that's who wins in a democracy. It's very simple. I never thought about it in terms of like, how do we empower black people? I just thought, why don't we empower Americans?
Yeah.
And so finally, when he says, oh, they just want the cities to count more. No, that is not remotely true. We want every vote to count the exact same.
Yeah.
If you get rid of the Electoral College, there's no crazy formula where like, okay, now everybody living in Detroit, you get 2 votes.
Well, it's multiplied by...
Everybody gets 1 vote.
Your vote is multiplied by how many Starbucks you have inside of a 10-block radius of your house. Well, but they understand that. That's why they use very deceptive language. They always say large urban areas, as if how wide it is in miles is what determines. No, it's not large geographically. It's large in that there's more people there. What we want is for people to matter. It's not like you have urban people and you have rural people. Okay, so we'll give the urban people the same amount of power as the rural. No, it matters how many people there are. And people keep bringing that up. Oh, well, you know, if you didn't have that, then they just go to the big cities and they try to appeal to like people and try to have people vote for them. Yes, they probably would. And nobody ever follows that up by explaining why rural voters are morally superior to people who happen to live near a city. If there's more of them, then yes, they count more. Now, we still do protect the minority in this country, and simply because there's more people who live near a city doesn't mean that they can then round up all the rural people and kill them or take away their rights or anything like that. But all else being equal, if there are far more people on one side, yes, they should probably have more control because people are the unit of measurement that matters in a democracy. But he doesn't care about that. Can I shoot down two misconceptions? So first of all, he's saying libs are just saying this because Hillary Clinton lost. And that's why the New York Times ran that big editorial. That may motivate some people, but it's just factually untrue that now all of a sudden libs are interested in this. So yes, yesterday, the New York Times had an editorial calling for the destruction of the Electoral College. But let's take a look at graphic 8A. Oh, sorry, just a couple weeks after they had it before. This is before the conversation started again. If we can go to this next one, you're going to see in 2013, they're questioning the continuation of the Electoral College. Trump wasn't president or going to be president then. If we go to the next one, you're going to see back in 2011, they're questioning the continuation of the Electoral College. And then if you go one more time, back in 2004, they had an editorial literally called Abolish the Electoral College. This is not purely based on Hillary Clinton. People have been questioning it for a lot longer than the New York Times has had online archives. That's just an easy way to find it. This is a debate that we've had through the entirety of the United States. But only now has it started to overthrow the will of the people, and that's what makes it a more relevant topic.
And I guarantee you, if the Democrats argue that somehow urban areas or minorities, blacks, Latinos, should have more of a vote, then I will fight tooth and nail against it. You know why? Because unlike Bill O'Reilly, I believe in democracy.
Yeah.
And I believe that the will of the people should be listened to. Now here, again, thank you, Bill, for making your intentions very, very clear. Clearly against democracy, and whoever gets more votes wins? No. If we found an antiquated, bizarre way of preserving white privilege, that's what Bill O'Reilly's in favor of. And he just told you.
Yeah.
Fix the media. Be the media. Come join us. tytnetwork.com/join.